This is Perfect English Practice Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Curious Case of. I'm Chris.
Hi, and I'm Sue. And today we're diving into a mysterious mental phenomenon that nearly everyone has experienced at one point or another, déjà vu. So the question is it a quirk of our brains, evidence of a glitch in our memory system, or something more mysterious? So we're here to explore the science behind it all.
That's right. Déjà vu, literally already seen in French, is that eerie sensation that I think we've all had, that you've experienced the present moment before. Like you know what's going to happen, or you know what somebody is going to say. And today we're going to talk about what déjà vu is, why it might happen, and examine some real-life examples from history to the present day.
Déjà vu is a phenomenon that all of us have experienced, that eerie feeling when you walk into a room or enter a new situation and you say to yourself, I've been here before. I mean, everything here is familiar.
Okay, so I have to say, to start out with, it's fascinating, but I'm a little skeptical. Anyway, as always. Anyway, but many people claim that déjà vu is a sign of something paranormal or a window into our past lives. Now, I'm more inclined to believe it's simply the result of our brain's wiring. Hey, let's get into it and see what the evidence says.
90% of the time, it could be just a psychological process. See, your mind has so many compartments. Most of them have not been opened up. Most of them.
Let's start with the basics. Déjà vu is described as a feeling of familiarity, where you're convinced that you've already lived through the exact same moment you're experiencing, even though you know rationally that you haven't.
Yes, exactly. Most people experience it briefly. It's a kind of a split second of confusion that then passes. But for many, that moment can be really strange and quite profound. However, when we look at the evidence, it appears to be more about the memory processing something rather than a supernatural phenomenon.
So there is a theory that says that déjà vu simply elicits fragments of memories that we have stored in our brain, memories that could be elicited by moving into an environment that resembles something that we've already experienced.
And research suggests that déjà vu might be linked to the way our brains handle memory. One popular theory is that it's a memory glitch, where our brain mistakenly interprets a new experience as familiar because of a slight delay in processing between different brain regions.
There are many spaces in the head that you don't know. It's one thing with your mind is everything that you have perceived, everything, even if you have perceived it unconsciously, it is still there.
Yeah, in fact, I found that theory the most plausible. It's likely our brain is juggling multiple processes simultaneously, one that registers the experience and another that recalls related memories. So, if those two signals get out of sync, you might get that fleeting feeling of familiarity, déjà vu.
I have three larger points that I'd like to make. One is that déjà vu can be studied scientifically. The second is that even the sense of premonition can be studied scientifically. And finally, don't underestimate the power of science for discovering how things work. There have been many proposed causes of déjà vu put forward over the years, all of them challenging to investigate scientifically. These range from the idea that déjà vu may be the result of spontaneous brain activity, I like to call this the glitch in the matrix idea, to the idea that déjà vu results from an unrecalled memory. So for example, maybe upon visiting the Louvre for the first time, the reason you experience déjà vu is because you're failing to recall the fact that you saw those same scenes in the movie The Da Vinci Code years ago. And that's responsible for this feeling of déjà vu.
Historically, déjà vu has been documented for centuries, and early philosophers and mystics mentioned similar sensations, often attributing them to precognition or even a glimpse of past lives.
Yes, and in many cultures, déjà vu is steeped in superstition. Some ancient traditions even saw it as an omen or a message from the divine. But as science has progressed, researchers in the late 19th century began to document it more systematically, helping to shift the conversation from mysticism to neuroscience.
So we don't have to invoke parallel universes, we don't have to invoke the multiverse in order to explain most déjà vu.
Yeah, but Freudian theories also touched on it, suggesting that déjà vu could be a repressed memory resurfacing in a disguised form. Although Freud's explanations aren't widely accepted today, they paved the way for a more scientific investigation into memory and perception.
Survey research suggests that people who report having déjà vu more frequently tend to travel more and to watch more movies. And this is consistent with the unrecalled memory hypothesis, because people who travel more and who watch more movies have more potential memories in there to serve as sources of déjà vu.
Yeah, and that's where modern research comes in. So instead of invoking metaphysical explanations, current studies look at brain structure, neural networks, some cases of temporal lobe epilepsy. This is where patients report frequent déjà vu episodes.
So let's talk about some of the scientific theories. One of the leading explanations is the dual processing theory. It suggests that there are two simultaneous processes in the brain, one for immediate perception and one for memory retrieval. And if there's a slight delay or miscommunication between the two, you might experience something as familiar even though it's actually new.
But everything that the camera of the eye sees, it captures and it's stored forever.
There's also the familiarity without recollection model. Essentially, your brain might register the context of a situation as familiar because certain features match with stored memories, but you can't pinpoint the exact memory. That mismatch creates the eerie sense of, I've been here before.
There's a very similar type of subjective phenomenon that you may be familiar with. It's called the tip of the tongue experience. The tip of the tongue experience is when you feel as though a word is right there, on the tip of your tongue, about to be recalled, and you can't quite access it.
Yeah, it is eerie, isn't it? So while these models sound convincing, it's important to note that the research is still evolving. There's no single definitive explanation that everyone in the scientific community agrees upon. And many experiments rely on self-reported data, which can be subjective.
Let's look at some real-life examples. Many people have experienced déjà vu during mundane activities, walking into a new coffee shop, into an office, or having a conversation that feels strangely familiar. One interesting historical case involves the French writer Marcel Proust. I mean, you must have been in a conversation where you've sort of known exactly what the person was going to say, and you often say that. You say, I knew you were going to say that. Yeah. But Proust described the moments of intense déjà vu that inspired parts of his work on memory.
So I would say 90% of the time it's a psychological process.
And more recently, researchers have used virtual reality setups to induce mild déjà vu-like sensations in study participants. By subtly altering familiar environments, they were able to trigger that uncanny feeling of familiarity, suggesting that even slight changes in our surroundings can spark these experiences.
So while these studies are interesting, I do remain cautious. It's one thing to induce a déjà vu-like feeling in a controlled experiment. It's quite another to say that the spontaneous déjà vu we experience in everyday life is fully understood. There's really a lot that we don't know.
Researchers have been studying tip-of-the-tongue experiences for many decades, and the way that they do this is to create circumstances in the laboratory that are hypothesized to produce tip-of-the-tongue experiences, and then to have people self-report on when they're experiencing tip-of-the-tongue and when they're not, in order to test these hypotheses. I wondered if the same approach could be taken with déjà vu.
Another angle to consider is the role of memory in déjà vu. Some researchers believe that it's related to the way we process short-term and long-term memory, and our brain might mistakenly retrieve a fragment of an old memory that resembles a current experience, causing a momentary overlap.
You will see, once you start believing in it, you will see it'll start happening to you everywhere.
It's like your brain is searching for a match in its vast database of experiences, and sometimes it picks a close enough record that creates the illusion of repetition. This process, while generally seamless, can sometimes trip up, resulting in the sensation of déjà vu.
We next asked, well, if déjà vu can be driven by an unrecalled memory, can it occur because we actually did experience this very thing before, but we forgot?
This might also explain why déjà vu is more common in younger people. Their brains are still forming and refining these memory networks. As we age, the networks become more established and the phenomenon might become less frequent.
Well, that's one hypothesis, but there are other schools of thought which suggest quite the opposite. There's conflicting data on whether déjà vu decreases or remains constant with age. It's one of those puzzles that keeps neuroscientists busy.
This also suggests that maybe sometimes we experience déjà vu because we did do this very thing before and we simply forgot.
Now let's get into some of the debates. One contentious point is whether déjà vu is a singular phenomenon or a catch-all term for several different experiences. Some experts argue that what we call déjà vu might actually be several distinct processes.
I tend to agree with that, actually, because the umbrella term déjà vu might hide a variety of different experiences, from simple memory mismatches to more complex phenomena associated with epilepsy or even stress. I don't think one size fits all.
And then there's the cultural and anecdotal side. Many people recount déjà vu in a way that feels mystical or unexplainable by science. So some even claim it's evidence of reincarnation or a glitch in the matrix.
Okay. So this is where my skepticism really kicks in. So extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and so far the data supports a simple neurological explanation. So while the experience, I should say, is fascinating, invoking supernatural explanations isn't necessary when we already have a plausible scientific theory.
Many people claim that when they experience déjà vu, it's accompanied by a feeling of knowing what will happen next. I wanted to find a way to experimentally investigate this.
But looking to the future, research into déjà vu is expanding with new technologies. Functional MRI and other brain imaging methods are providing more insight into how our brains behave during these episodes.
Okay, so now I'm going to say something that's really interesting. What about jamais vu? Okay, this is the opposite of a déjà vu. So this is where something familiar feels completely new. Understanding both could reveal more about how memory and perception interact.
What we came up with to experimentally investigate this idea was, we thought, why not use the scenes that we'd used in these previous studies and try to create a dynamically unfolding situation in which we could examine the possibility of prediction?
And some researchers are even looking into potential clinical application of this research. For instance, if we can better understand the neural underpinnings of déjà vu, it might help in diagnosing and treating conditions like epilepsy, where these experiences are more frequent and potentially disruptive.
True, but I caution that while these technological advances are promising, we're still at a very early stage. The brain is incredibly complex, and each study often raises more questions than answers.
So I'd like to remind you of these three main points that I wanted to make here: that déjà vu can be studied scientifically, that even the sense of premonition can be studied scientifically, and don't underestimate the power of science for discovering how things work.
Okay, before we wrap up, we asked our listeners to share their own déjà vu experiences. One listener, Alex from Munich, described a moment during a thunderstorm when everything felt eerily familiar, almost as if he'd been in that exact moment before. It made him pause and reflect on the nature of time and memory.
Yeah, interesting. In fact, I also received an email from Maria in Spain, and she mentioned that déjà vu happened to her during stressful moments, such as just like before a meeting. And she wondered if it might be the brain's way of preparing her for something significant.
It's fascinating how these experiences vary from person to person. But while science might explain the underlying mechanisms, the subjective quality of déjà vu remains deeply personal and in many ways very mysterious.
And that's part of what makes studying human cognition so interesting. It's the intersection of objective science and subjective experience.
So what have we learned today about déjà vu? We've seen that it's a well-documented phenomenon with a likely basis in our brain's memory systems and neural processing, from dual processing delays to familiarity misattribution. There are several theories, each with its own supporting evidence.
Yeah, and while I remain skeptical of any claims that push déjà vu into the realm of the supernatural or metaphysics, I do acknowledge that there's still much we don't understand about our brains and how they work. But for now, the weight of evidence supports just a neurological explanation.
And that's what makes science so exciting. Every answer leads to a new question. Even if déjà vu is just a brain glitch, it offers us a window into complexities of memory, perception, and consciousness.
Indeed. So whether you experience déjà vu as a fleeting moment of mystery or a sign of something deeper, it's a reminder of how intricate the workings of our brain and human mind are.
I knew you were going to say that. Anyway, thank you all for joining us on this journey into the science of déjà vu. We hope you found it as intriguing as we did.
I'd like to end with a quote by the famous computer scientist Alan Kay. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. No matter how familiar a situation might seem, or no matter how strongly you might feel that you know exactly how this is going to go, or exactly how this situation is going to unfold, our experiences don't just unfold before us in a predetermined manner. Our actions and our choices can change the course of our futures.
So if you have any of your own déjà vu stories or thoughts on the subject, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on social media or just leave us a review. We're always eager to learn about any of your experiences.
And you can also leave us a voice message either on the front page or in the comments, and we'll include your voice with your experiences in one of our new podcasts. That's all for today's episode of The Curious Case of. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay curious.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. See you next time.